Hello, my name is Luke and I'm a senior in the General Studies program. The purpose of this video is to explain what the fiscal cliff is, what caused it, and how it has been handled up until March 3rd of this year. The fiscal cliff was a combination of the expiration of the Tax Relief, Unemployment Insurance Reauthorization, and Job Creation Act of 2010, and the implementation of the Budget Control Act of 2011. The Tax Relief Act basically extended the Bush tax cuts and reduced the FICA payroll tax for 1 year. The Budget Control Act of 2011 was a compromise reached by Congress and the executive to cut spending in exchange for Congress authorizing an increase in the federal debt ceiling. Additionally, a supercommittee was formed to make recommendations on how to cut federal spending. A defense sequester was implemented in order to force Congress to act upon the supercommittee's recommendations. Now, the fiscal cliff was caused because Congress had been unable to pass a budget for quite a few years, and the budget deficit and national debt had been growing extraordinarily quickly for over a decade. Congress decided that rather than govern with intelligence and foresight, they would create a financial time bomb set to go off on January 1st of 2013 if they couldn't do their basic business. Of course, Congress magnificently failed. On January 1st, Congress passed the American Taxpayer Relief Act of 2012. The Bush tax cuts were allowed to expire on individuals making over $400,000, or for married people over $450,000, and this was indexed to inflation. The new top marginal tax rate became 39.6% from 35%. Capital gains and dividends were set to 20% from 15%, and some deductions and credits for incomes over $250,000. $300,000 for married couples were phased out. Estate taxes were set to 40% of the value above $5 million. This was also indexed to inflation. This was increased from 35%. The AMT was indexed to inflation so it won't bite into the middle class in the future. And payroll tax cuts were ended. This basically raised everybody's payroll tax from 4.2% to 6.2%. Tax credits for the poor, such as for college tuition and the earned income tax credit, were extended, and $600 billion in new revenue is basically the result of all this. Sequestration, the mandatory spending cuts if the deal was not reached, was basically kicked down the road to March 1st. And then there was also a pay freeze for Congress. The Farm Bill was extended 9 months. Federal unemployment benefit funding was extended 1 year without offsets. Now, what should they have done? They should have implemented pay-go, basically paying for new programs or old programs as we go along instead of deficit spending. This is something that was raised in the 90s and for some period of time was actually implemented. There needs to be a balanced budget amendment. The details of that can be argued, but at the end of the day, we are a rich enough nation that we should be able to meet our obligations without borrowing money. And what Congress really should have done that would have been very doable was to give either themselves or the president the authority to make the sequester cuts in an intelligent way. Instead of saying we're going to do these draconian cuts, it should have been set up in such a way that they could say, defense, you have the option to make these cuts from wherever you feel they should be made. The primary failure on January 1st was to act on the sequester. The blind cuts are currently being made instead of thoughtful cuts, and on March 3rd, no additional action was taken. They just let it happen. And the question is sequestration a good tool for addressing the federal budget deficit? No, it isn't. It's as I said, it's a draconian method to make cuts, and at the end of the day, we're trying to cut things that should be done surgically with a hatchet, and it's just not. It's not a good way to govern, and it's definitely not a good way to plan for the future. Now, how should the government address the difficult task of making choices on revenue shortfalls, both taxation and spending? First, we have to be honest that there is a real problem. There is no way that current spending is sustainable, and I think we all know that. There are basically 4 steps that I believe need to be taken. First, defense and other discretionary spending must be made substantially more efficient. $500 hammers can't be bought anymore. No bid contracts and transformer airplanes are ridiculous drivers of cost. Student aid and corporate bailouts have to be substantially scaled back or eliminated. These are painful cuts, but the country must be solvent. If banks are too big to fail, then antitrust laws need to be enforced. There are no easy solutions here. Second, entitlements such as Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security must be scaled back. 1 out of 11 workers is eligible or will receive disability payments at some point in their lifetime. These costs are not sustainable. We don't need to break the social contract, but expectations must be changed. My generation will not receive as great of a benefit as we were promised. Let's be honest about that right now so that my generation can plan for the future. We also need to scale back disbursements to those that are less needy. This is socialistic, but so are the programs in and of themselves. We will all have to accept lower levels of service from entitlement programs going forward. Third, we have to attack health care costs on all fronts. This is the largest driver of cost for the government, employers, and for individuals. The standard of care actually won't need to change a great deal, but we can't keep spending $10 for an aspirin when we go to the hospital. As backwards as this may sound, Medicare should be offered to younger and younger people. Medicare is incredibly efficient. I believe 97% of their costs actually go to healthcare instead of to administration. And younger people that are wasting their premiums on inefficient private providers that are paying 25 or 30% of that premium dollar to bureaucrats, basically, could be paying into the Medicare system. This would increase Medicare's buying power and drive down costs, and the younger and healthier payers would not overly burden the system. Finally, taxes are incredibly low for the level of service we receive from the federal government. The estate tax needs to come back with a vengeance. FICA taxes will probably need to go up, and the tax base must be extended. Welfare of all kinds must be cut. Giving women tax breaks for having children in a country that has a growing population is absurd. Giving farmers tax breaks for growing corn when they already produce enough food to overfeed the nation is absurd. These preferential tax benefits add up, and we must all sacrifice. At the end of the day, it's going to require all sides to make compromises on a lot of issues. We're all going to lose something that we care about. We're all going to have to pay more than we want to. But at the end of the day, what we need to be looking for is a sustainable government, and we don't have that right now. Thank you for watching my video today, and good luck to everybody when grades come out, and have a great day. Thank you.